does Neil Young think of Aphex Twin? I don't have that answer, but we're talking about Aphex Twin next. And it's Aphex Twin, selected ambient works 85 to here. We are the music makers.
We are the music makers, and we are the dreamers of dreams.
A lot of options to choose from for the songs this week for Aphex Twin. Now, what are the stats on this?
All right, so selected ambient works 85 to 92 by Aphex Twin comes in at number 46 in the 1990s on Best Ever Albums, number 5 in 1992, number 233 of all time. It is Aphex Twin's highest rated album on Best Ever Albums. Did not make Rolling Stone's list, and Aphex Twin is ranked number 134 of overall artist rankings on Best Ever Albums.
All right, this album was released November 9th, 1992, and I always like doing battles of people I have no idea about anything. Aphex Twin's one man, guys. I thought it was a group. Richard David James, born in Limerick, Ireland in 1971. This is his debut album, and he just has 6 studio albums, but he does have 16 EPs as well. He is classified as electronica, techno, ambient, and experimental, or a combination of all of those. He's influenced by Brian Eno, Kraftwerk, Throbbing Gristle, Tangerine Dream, among others, followed by artists like Radiohead, Deadmau5, Skrillex, Major Lazer, Calvin Harris. Those were all the electronic acts that I recognized in the list. So there's
a lot of
well.
underground stuff too.
His contemporaries I did not recognize at all, full disclosure, so that's why I didn't even include them, because I would have just been reading names. He has no singles on the Hot 100, maybe not surprisingly. His 2014 album, though, Zero, reached number 11 on the Billboard 200. Fun facts, he bought his first synth at age 12 and began making music at age 14, partially as a refuge from the, quote, bloody awful Jesus and Mary Chain albums played by his sister, which I thought was hilarious. Acid House was popular at the time when he was growing up, and he started DJing at clubs and raves in his late teens. He has a degree in engineering from Cornwall College. Some of the tracks on this album are from when he was 13 and 14 years old, hence the age, the age range on the name of the album, or the year range. And I don't know which ones. There was no kind of like specificity as to which was what, but he said of this album, the songs on this album were quote, just tracks that my mates selected, ones that they like to chill out to. So he signed his first contract while he was tripping on acid backstage at a DJ gig. And people said he probably wouldn't have signed the contract if he wasn't on acid, so they were fortunate for that. I don't think it was anything nefarious. It was just kind of, he was, I think, reluctant to do that. He's released other albums and EPs under the aliases AFX and Caustic Window. There's a lot of like weird technical stuff involved with his album releases through the years, and like weird types of equipment and ways of releasing, and like SoundCloud and all this other like kind of more arcane stuff. So you can read up on that as well. His face, either grinning or distorted, is the theme of his album covers, music videos, and songs. He said it began as a response to techno producers who concealed their identities, which is true. Doesn't Deadmau5 wear like a hat, and like Daft Punk, or like they wear the helmets and
robots?
It's like a weird thing.
That goes back to like Kraftwerk, you know, like being that's
he said
that's part of the genre.
Yeah. He said, quote, I did it because the thing in techno you weren't supposed to do is to be recognized and stuff. The sort of unwritten rule that you can't put your face on the sleeve. It had to be like a circuit board or something. Therefore, I put my face on the sleeve. That's why I originally did it, but then I got carried away. And then I included this quote specifically for Matt. In 2013, Radiohead singer Tom York named Aphex Twin as his biggest influence, saying, quote, "He burns a heavy shadow. Aphex opened up another world that didn't involve my fucking electric guitar. I hated the Britpop thing and what was happening in America, but Aphex was totally beautiful, and he's kind of my age too," unquote. So we've reached the future. John, what did you think of this album?
So, full disclosure, if we did not do this podcast, I don't think I ever would have listened to Aphex Twin because this is one of these where it's like I knew elements of Aphex Twin. I knew it was ambient music. I knew that he always had those weird covers with like creepy faces or like a crazy head on
Distorted,
like a buxom like that was always a piece. And I remember he was always talking shit about like artists in like Spin and stuff, and I would just kind of hear him described and the stuff, and just my first take was always that this is just not music for me. Like, I just know this will not be music for me. And so that's what's great about this podcast, is that, you know, I will now listen to the things that I don't do, which I kind of like love now. It's like there will be no albums I know about, like artists I know that'll get through my purview anymore. Like, I won't have holes in the game. This album is also very influential on today's sound. I mean, you can hear the next 30 years of music in this. And there's a lot of stuff today that owes debts to this music. Not to mention reinventions that big bands like Radiohead, did that sounded a lot like this. And of course, as the 90s went on, variations, and I know he speeds up the cadence and stuff at different times. So all that. With that being said, I did not like this album. It's not my favorite genre. I find ambient music boring at times. I realize I might have some blind spots. The problem I have with ambient music is I look at it as this has to exist to put me in a certain headspace. Like, that's the only thing it could exist for. Now, I know another thing is a lot of people like ambient music as sort of like an artistic description, like the minimalist approach, and finding maximalist and minimalist, and a little bit of like what I find in noise rock sometimes. I think of that Slint album, right? That was very minimalist, but I found a lot profound in it and stuff like that. So I completely get the idea. This just felt like I was playing a first-person shooter video game for like 50 minutes. It sounds like what the genre of music that's now called video game music is. And I just didn't, and I tried not to read to influence my opinion, but I'm like, I gotta like have a counter opinion before I get to Matt and Josh to kind of challenge me on this a little bit. And I want people to tell me what it is. And like half of what people were saying is, this is great fucking music when you're doing acid or just like, and it's like, cool, but that's not me. So that element is not available to me. Okay, got it. I don't doubt that this would be great. So, okay, what's the other 50%? And the other 50% is like the stuff that Josh, just contribute as, there's lots of technical tricks on this album that like, and I could go into the technical, but we're gonna skip that. And I feel like the people that don't want to skip that part of it are here. So it's a weird dichotomy of the fact that I appreciate the craft of this. I certainly appreciate the influence. I mean, my gosh, there's few albums we've listened to so far that I think predict the future more than this one. So I get it. I get it as a reaction to the age, because we listen to so much stuff that was produced in different genres with bombastic sounds or drums mixed up front and stuff like that. So I completely understand it as a artistic mission. It just didn't interest me enough. And I tried to listen to it at different times and with different mood points, and I tried to listen to it as individual tracks. I tried to listen to it as a coherent like piece, so I tried to do it like when I was driving, right, to see if I could get into like a zone mode or something, but it always kept me at a distance. And I know we're going to cover Aphex Twin a couple more times, and I'm open to the idea that variations of this are here, but I don't know, and I'm not anti stripped down, and I've even come around to a fair amount of electronic music recently, but I don't know, this just wasn't hitting me. I did though say I have a sneaking suspicion Josh and Matt are going to really like this album. So I'm curious to see what you guys think.
So I knew that Aphex Twin was influential on Radiohead. I remember seeing
Kid
Tom
A
York.
specifically, I saw.
Oh, absolutely.
Too.
Oh,
yeah.
I'm sure. Absolutely. I mean, that's very much.
There's all kinds of bleeps and bloops.
And
all over
and
this,
I was on the electronic synth, part of their sound, not their older rock stuff. So I've always kind of known that, but again, it's never something that I went out and sought out, and so it's cool that I'm getting to get exposed to it. So I didn't know any of these songs, and I got to say, the first time I heard it, I was a little nonplussed. I was actually I listened to it on the way to and from work that day, and I was just not. I was like, okay, like it's not offensive or anything like that. It's certainly not harsh. I can see, there's some somewhat relaxing qualities to this kind of a thing, some beats and whatnot, but it didn't really do much for me. And then the second time I listened to it was at night. And this is a night album. Like, I don't know how, and I would not, it's like a different album in the day than it is at night. And I don't think I have much of an interest listening to this during the day.
It's not just a night album. It's like a 1 a.m. at night album.
Yes. Well, my 1 a.m. these days is probably 11, but still.
I hear you.
Yeah. But just being at night when it's a little quiet and you're coming down from the day, and I don't know, you're whatever, you just want some music in the background. This is something that I would definitely see myself putting on. There is a very soothing quality to this. John, you're asking like what is it that you're missing, and it's definitely a different thing that I get from other songs. Like, other music does different things for me. This is more of just it's almost like a meditative calming of the end of the day, but thrown in with some beats and thrown in with some little bit of interesting, kind of melodic things that kind of repeat and jump in here and there and keep you interested, right? So it's not something it's not like spa music, right, where you're gonna fall asleep, right, because it's just too soothing, and there's still things that are being thrown at you.
Well, and it's not like Massive Attack, because there's no hip hop influence in this at all.
Right. It has nothing to do with that,
and it's all instrumental too.
Yeah, and it's all like. It's all computers, basically, yep. Right? I mean, that's part of what he is playing the computer. No, like it's flat out. And it's got enough beat, and it's got just enough of this other thing that just kind of it's a little bit more vibrant at the same time too. And so you can while it's kind of like a nice calming type of music to have play, it's also something that you could see played at a club, right? Some of the stuff, some of it's got enough of a beat to dance. It's not like one of the bangers, right? It's not everybody's like going nuts and stuff. But
I would say not all of the songs are like kind of club bangers, though. There's a variety here, I think.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that some of it's more mellow than other times. But I like this. To me, and it was hard to differentiate between the songs. It just is kind of, this is not like a collection of songs to me. This is more of just like a movement or something, it's just like because it all kind of, and maybe my palate's not as refined with this, because it's harder for me to kind of like pick out differences and stuff. There are differences clearly, but it still is the overall. It's the sonic feel, the aura that I feel mostly with this record, and I think that it's a nice meditative type of music to have playing at night. So I really enjoyed it, but it's for certain a time and place album for me. And I agree with you, John. I can see this, the influence that this has for decades to come. I certainly, Radiohead makes more sense to me, at least in like why they started going that direction, or what they were listening to that put them on that direction, starting with Kid A. So, and I like that. I like the stuff that they did there, right? So it's kind of good to go back and get the skeletal, beginnings of a sound that I would come to really like when Radiohead, I think, kind of made it even more interesting than this, right? They threw in more elements to it, and I was just more intrigued by them. But yeah, thumbs up for me. I enjoyed this.
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on this album. I do feel like this is different than other electronic music that we've heard up to this point. I feel like there is a shift here. It is more digital, maybe. It sounds different than Kraftwerk and definitely some of the other like techno singles that we've listened to, and kind of the Euro inspired dance stuff that we listened to as well. I feel like this album and the tracks are very technical and kind of complex and layered in a lot of ways that we haven't heard with other techno music or electronic music up to this point, and I like the variety on this. I do feel like there's kind of differentiation between songs. There's not only like a tempo difference, but there's often different sounds, or bass is involved more heavily than others. Some songs remind me more like X-Files-esque, like Shot Key Seventh Path, or they do feel more like drug inspired, or like UFOs are gonna abduct me or something. And some are more kind of like seem more like video game type of sounds. The one Aegiopolis or Aegisopolis sounds like the tones in a hearing test. I thought that with the drum machine mixed in with the synth. And there's, it is kind of like spacey at times too, on like Pulse Width. And I like the We Are the Music Makers Willy Wonka sample. That's why I chose that song. So there is some like interesting things here. I think the key for me, I listened to this twice. I agree with you, Matt. I think this is a night album. It was raining here today when I listened to some of it again, and that atmosphere works as well. I think the key is ambient with this type of music. You can't really, maybe the way, John, that you like dial in with the noise rock and feel comforting by this. I feel like it works best for me with this album when it is in the background and you're not like fully paying attention to it. I was listening to it last night one time and was like doing like a crossword, and while I was listening to it, and I feel like it worked really well for that. I listened to it today while I was working, and I feel like it was fading out in the background enough that I could still focus on work, but kind of come in and out with what was going on in the tracks, and I feel like it worked really well for that. So,
it's definitely you're right, Josh. That's it was a very good work album. I found I did it like twice this week. I agree. And
so it's not like challenging in the way that, or abrasive in a way that some music can be, that maybe is ambient or experimental in a way that is kind of more challenging. We talked about those albums from the 70s and 80s that are like that, and I didn't feel like that for this one. So I thought it was an interesting, creative kind of experiment, definitely different than something I would normally listen to. I didn't really find a lot of some of these types of albums I really don't get in the same way that John did, or didn't respond to in the same way. But I did respond to this one on some level. So I'm going to give this kind of like a mild thumbs up to, thumbs in the middle. Definitely, I do think there is something different here. And like you guys said, it does lead the way for like Daft Punk and many other artists later on. The DNA's there. So interesting.
It's interesting because a lot of the groups that were influential to him, like Throbbing Gristle and stuff, I was much higher on than you guys, but I think it was because they were, to me, a little bit more challenging.
Yeah.
I'll give one last thing. I don't find this type of sound comforting. It's very ominous to me, this type of like really artificial music. Yeah. And I'm always aware of that I totally get that so many people I know would listen to this like you guys did and say, I find this really relaxing. And I know people that do it. I don't, though. It like makes me edgy. It's just, because I think it's so synthetic, there's something about it that just does not calm me. And that's why the pictures of him being so uneasy are such good images for me, because it feels like it's the type of creep music that's gonna come and like, it's like the type of music that something you couldn't see is gonna come and like swallow you whole. I can't really describe it, but like it's funny because I hear this music described as comforting all the time, but I never process this type of sound as comfort. And I always said like Kraftwerk's albums were always that obviously were influential to this by quite a bit, were always about ominous topics. Like, and I think that there's a reason for that, like, because to me this is a little bit creepy. So
well, it's funny you say that because I read just very little on this guy, and I guess he's got some videos that are actually pretty creepy, supposedly. So
sure they are. I remember seeing them.
Yeah, I don't remember seeing the
Daddy,
videos, but
right? Wasn't that the big one?
I think so. Yeah,
and that's so funny because I totally see what you're saying, and I can totally hear that, but that's not my default when I go to that. I'm not thinking like all that. I'm thinking like, I can like relax, like background, like you, Josh, background music, calming, kind of just like, nice way to end the day. And for other people, it's like this terrifying, ominous, like,
I wouldn't
scary.
say terrifying. It just puts me edgy. Like I probably process it like Josh. How he's like, I get no comfort out of this noise rock. It just drives me insane. My brain and me and you are like, it puts us in like a zen. I think it's probably just the equivalent of that for me, where it doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't like harsh me because it's not gonna do it. But it evokes. It evokes crime to me, kind of like mind crime though. Like mind crime. Yeah.
Well, you got to get on board before the AI take over because this is their music of choice. So I've heard. So.
Which is what that's once
now
again,
I might be scared.
Like I said, I'm on to something. I think I don't think
Thanks, Josh.
Yeah.
Good stuff. I think all of our takes are valid ultimately. I totally get. There's no way this is going to be like my favorite music ever or something, but I did think it was interesting intellectually. But